Hello and happy March Ignite. Welcome to our 15-minute flow for the month of March. So since March is National Nutrition Month and much of our focus on the blog and with our workshop and some other things that we're doing this month are all focused around nutrition, I thought it would be good to do a 15-minute flow mini video for you that is somehow related to food, nutrition, in this case, digestion specifically. So we're going to do a 15-minute yin flow. So this one will be a little bit different only because in yin, we hold poses for a longer period of time. So what I'm going to do in this video is demonstrate the poses for you, show you some different ways to use props to get into the pose. And then it's so that if you want to use this video for almost like a class, just be prepared to hit pause and time yourself for the amount of time I give you for each of the poses. I'm not going to sit statically for 3 or 5 minutes for each pose. Otherwise, in 15 minutes, we'll get to 2 or 3 poses, and it really just won't be as productive as it could be otherwise. So what I'm going to do is demonstrate about 5 poses, do a little bit of a warm-up, do a short Shavasana at the end for you so that you can play it from start to finish if you want. But again, you just have to hit pause. And you'll understand more what I mean when you get to that point in the video. When I demonstrate and you're ready to get into the pose, you'll just pause it, time yourself for the 3 to 5 minutes, and then come out of the pose, come back, and continue on like that. So you can actually have the practice itself. Doing it that way, the practice itself will be longer than 15 minutes. But again, these poses are designed to be held longer. So yin focuses on the fascia, that connective tissue in the body, and really stretching it out. So we want to stay in the poses long enough for that to happen. So you'll see as we get into the poses, we're going to use a lot of props to help us find that very comfortable, fully supported position for ourselves. And it's going to be different for everyone. I'll demonstrate a few different things, but even what I demonstrate may not be enough for you. So feel free to take what I'm sharing and modify it accordingly and add more props or less props as needed. So with that said, let's find our seat and just take a moment to get centered and grounded before we start with the practice. So finding those sits bones, just getting connected to the ground beneath us. We'll roll the shoulders down away from the ears. Palms up. If you want to receive some energy, palms down. If not, either is fine. We're just kind of settling in, starting to connect to the breath. And again, you can close the eyes if that's helpful and comfortable for you. As another way of sort of just drowning out everything around you and just focusing on the breath. Just feel the breath as it flows in and out. Not that we're trying to control it, we're just noticing it as it flows at its own pace. Letting go of whatever the day may have brought to us. Letting go of stresses and tensions. Letting go of worries. Letting go of all those things that aren't serving us. Just feeling the breath flow in the body. And as it does, notice how the body starts to relax. The muscles begin to release and let go. Beginning at the crown of the head and all the muscles in the face, including the jaw. Let the throat soften. Let the arms be heavy. Feeling the body sinking even more deeply into those sits bones. Relaxing fingers and toes. Relaxing elbows and knees. And just feeling that belly rise and fall with the breath. Let's take a nice deep breath in and sigh it out. Just feel that tension leaving the body.
And ordinarily, before we start any practice, it's good to let the muscles get stretched out a little bit. So we'll do a few warm-up stretches. Feel free, though, if you're watching this and intending to use this as a full practice, to hit pause and do additional stretches if you want. I'm kind of in a 15-minute time crunch here, so I'm not going to do my normal stretches that I would in a regular class for those of you that are used to being in class with me, but just enough to kind of get us a little bit warmed up. So again, just feel free to add more if you'd like. So we'll start with just some shoulder rolls. So taking the hands off of the lap, just rolling shoulders up and back and around, just nice and slow. We'll do a few times around in one direction, and then we'll switch. Bring the shoulders forward, feeling those shoulder blades stretch out as they roll around the front. Again, just a couple of rotations. And then we'll let the arms relax wherever is comfortable. Sitting up nice and tall through the crown of the head. Let's just drop that chin down so it'll stretch in the back of the neck and across the shoulders. And again, just relaxing in the breath here. Allowing yourself to stay here as long as you want. Again, you can always hit pause and stay here a little bit longer. Hold a lot of stress and tension in our shoulders. And eventually, we're going to inhale and roll the left ear over toward the left shoulder, but just making sure we keep those shoulders down away from the ears. Don't let them come up. Keep them down. Feel that stretch on the right side of the neck. Get it nice and open. Breathing into that space. And then we'll exhale, dropping the chin back down. And inhale and take it over to the right. So same thing, shoulders stay down. Now we're opening up the left side of the neck. And you might notice, you might observe that one side of the neck is a little tighter than the other. That's actually pretty common. So maybe we just need to stay in that on one side a little bit longer just to help stretch it out more. Just breathing here. And then we'll exhale and drop the chin, roll it back down, let the head be heavy for another breath or two. And then we'll inhale the eyes forward. We're going to come down into the waist area. We're going to inhale, arms up, reaching for the sky. And then as we exhale, we're going to hinge forward. Let the arms come down to the ground and then just folding forward as far as you can, letting the head relax. Maybe it touches the ground, maybe it doesn't. Just breathing into that stretch in the low back, the hips, maybe even down into the legs a little bit. Just again, noticing the tightness, where that might be. Couple breaths here. And on your next inhale, we'll just walk ourselves back up. And again, you're certainly welcome to do some other stretches if you'd like. But I'm going to go ahead and get into the first pose so that we can get through some of these poses. We're doing yin poses that are going to be focusing on the stomach and spleen meridian. So again, working with the digestion, the whole digestive system. Since we're focusing on nutrition, that seemed to be a good link for this particular month. So we're going to start with dragonfly. Dragonfly is the yin name for basically wide-legged forward fold. So I'm going to come off of the cushion that I'm sitting on. I'm actually going to pull it over here to the side because I may choose to use that. So we're going to sit with our legs nice and wide. Again, staying on our sit bones and staying, getting the legs out as wide as possible while staying on the sit bones. A couple of ways to do this pose. So you can use blocks, you can use bolsters, you may get creative and find a couple of ways. But the stretch obviously here is for the legs. But we want to lean forward. And we're going to stay here for 5 minutes. Now, again, I'm not actually going to stay here in the video for 5 minutes, but if you were doing this practice and wanted to do this pose, you'd hit pause, time it for 5 minutes, and then come back. But because we're staying here 5 minutes, the upper body, we want to be supported, comfortable, relaxed. We want it to kind of melt a little bit. The stretch for the fascia is in the legs. So the upper body is just kind of hanging out. And if we are leaning forward, obviously if you're flexible enough, you can rest your head on the ground. You've got support right there. But for many of us, that's not a possibility. So what can we do to support the upper body so that after a while, we're not kind of slouching, hanging out here for 5 minutes? We want to keep a nice tall spine, shoulders rolled back and supported. So one option is to use a block or two. And again, you can use the blocks on whatever setting, as forward as you need to rest your forehead on. Arms just relaxing here. So that's one option. Another option for those of you who have bolsters, and this is not the best bolster to demonstrate because it is kind of a square flat bolster, but a rounded bolster works much better, is to almost do a lean-to effect. So your body leans into the prop and kind of is supported by that. So I would put the prop out here on an angle and rest my forehead into it. Now this particular bolster, because of its construction, tends to buckle. That's why the rounded ones, the round bolsters work better. But again, you know, if you are able to fold forward more, you might also be able to put the bolster flat in front of you with maybe a block on one of its settings. That's another option. Or maybe you can actually just lay your whole torso down on the bolster. Again, depending on where your flexibility is for this pose, those are some options. So play with it, find what feels good to your body. Remember, the stretch is for the legs, and we want the rest of the body, the upper body, to be supported. So play with what props that you have. And again, if you're going to do this pose, or this video, excuse me, in its entirety, you would pause for 5 minutes in that pose. And then when we come out of it, I'll show you how we would kind of counteract that, a little bit of a counter stretch. We would move the props out of the way, bring our legs back together. And what I like to do is bend the knees just a little bit so the feet are on the floor, put our hands behind us or lean back into our hands and just drop our knees from side to side, kind of like windshield wipers. Just kind of side to side, a couple of times, and then we're good. The next pose I want to show you is child's pose. So you're all familiar with child's pose. This is going to be the wide-legged version. So we're going to have our legs out, our knees out wide, so that we have that space in front of us, because we're going to have props, right? So we're going to have likely a bolster, maybe bolsters and blocks, maybe multiple bolsters. Again, it depends on your flexibility. So I'm going to sit here with my knees out wide at the edges of the mat, sitting back toward my heels. Now, again, if I'm not able to touch my heels, or if it's not comfortable because I am sitting on my heels and that doesn't feel good, you can also take a blanket or a bolster underneath your bottom and add that as cushion here on your heels. So that's always an option as well. And then we've got the bolster. Again, depending on the type of bolster you have, you may need more than one. I also like to use a block because of wearing glasses. When I put my forehead down, it allows me to face forward without having my face shoved into the bolster. So you can also turn and lay your head on the side too, but then, you know, you're in this pose for 5 minutes, so you can get a kink in your neck. So you just, if you do choose to lay on one side or one cheek, just remember to flip to the other side so that you don't get that kink in your neck. So again, we would fold forward for child's pose, just as we normally would, arms stretched out. Again, I'm going to use a block, resting my forehead on it, and just letting the upper body kind of melt into that bolster. You can bring the bolster in closer to you if you want a little more support for the torso itself. So again, just playing with that and seeing what combination of props feels best to you. And just relaxing here again for 5 minutes if you're going to do this pose in its entirety right now. You can hit pause and come back in 5 minutes. But for the sake of time in the video, I'm going to show you how we then come out of that after the 5 minutes is up. We, of course, move our props out of the way, swing those legs around in front of us, because now we've been sitting on them for 5 minutes and they're probably not super happy with us. And we're just going to give them a good shake. You can also, I forgot to mention this earlier, you can also put extra padding down on your mat, a blanket or folded up blanket to give you more padding for the knees if you have any knees or shin issues. So let's take a look at saddle or half saddle. So this is a really great stretch for the upper parts of the legs, for the thighs. But many of us are so tight. This is a hard pose. In a perfectly flexible world, we would be laying flat on the ground in this pose. Very few of us, outside of maybe when we were little, can do that. So it's something that we're going to do with props. So again, bolster and likely blocks as well. So in essence, I'm going to demonstrate half saddle first. Full saddle is just doing both sides at one time. Half saddle is doing one side at a time. So I'm going to demonstrate half saddle. If you choose to do full saddle, you certainly can do that. I do half saddle on one side for 4 minutes, and then I switch sides and do the other side for 4 minutes. You can do both sides at one time for 4 minutes, totally up to you. I prefer to spread out the stretch because it's pretty intense. Some people just like to get it over with and just do it all at one time. So again, whichever you prefer. But again, I'm going to demonstrate half straddle or half saddle, excuse me. So what that looks like is one leg's going to stay straight. The other leg is going to come bent. So my knee is pointing forward. My heel is back here by my buttock. And then in reality, I'm leaning back. And again, as I mentioned, in a perfect world, if I were super flexible, I'd be laying all the way back flat on the ground. I am not that flexible. So I need the help of some props. I am not flexible enough that just a bolster is enough. I need to create what I like to call the yoga recliner to lean back into. So what that looks like, for those of you that are not familiar with that, is we take two blocks. One, we stand up on its tallest setting, and the other one we lay down flat right in front of it, so it's touching. And then we take our bolster and lean it on an angle so that it is on that top block, just a little bit of the bolster hanging over that block, not too much, because that creates a collapse. And then it's on a nice angle here, all right? So it creates a little bit of a recliner. So I can sit here with my bottom against the base of the bolster, and I can recline back and be supported. Now, what I want to do here again is half saddle. So I'm going to bring my leg back here. One leg straight, one leg bent. Again, I could do both at the same time. And then I'm going to lean back. If this is not high enough, you could add a second bolster to raise yourself up. Lots of different ways you can do it. But at any rate, the idea is that the leg stays flat. If you start to feel this leg pulling up, then we need to raise you up so that we get the stretch. If we start pulling the leg up off the floor, then the body's not positioned correctly. All right, so then we would stay here for 4 minutes, and then we would transition to the other side and do that side for 4 minutes. And please know, the two legs can be very different. My left side is much tighter than my other side. I almost need to raise myself a little bit because this leg really wants to lift up off the ground. So just be mindful of that as you are doing these, one side versus the other. When you have some of these poses that hit both sides of the body, make adjustments. You don't have to use the exact same props on both sides if that's not working for the body, okay? So again, the upper body is just kind of melting into the props, relaxing. 4 minutes later, we come out of it and we stretch up, shake the legs out a little bit. You might even want to do a little forward fold just to kind of stretch that out, whatever feels good to kind of counteract that particular stretch. The last one that I want to show you is reclining twist. So reclining twist, yin style, involves props most often. So when we are laying flat on our back, we'll have our arms out in the T. That helps to anchor the shoulders into the ground so we're not lifting the upper body as the lower part of the body is twisting to one side or the other. The knees will be in toward the chest, and we drop the knees over to one side for 5 minutes and then do the other side for 5 minutes as well. The key with the legs in the yin positioning is that the leg that is on the ground side is touching the ground. And if it can't, because you're just not able to twist enough, then we pull in a block or a bolster for it to be supported by so that it is resting on something. The stretch for this pose is in our low back in that twist. So we need the legs to be completely comfortable. The other thing that often happens is when we're twisted, this leg may be on the ground or touching a prop, but then this one doesn't come and lay on it directly. So we may have to take a block and put it between the knees. Okay, so here's kind of what that looks like. So we stretch ourselves out on the ground. Again, shoulders anchored into the floor. We'll eventually put our arms out here once we get our position and our props in place. But we're going to bring the knees into the chest, drop them over to one side. Again, if this leg doesn't touch the ground, we're going to insert a prop underneath. And then if we can't get these knees to touch and still keep the shoulders down, we might need to insert a prop here. Eyes can be looking at the sky, or since my knees are to the right, my eyes could go to the left. Again, whatever's comfortable for the neck. We'd stay here for 5 minutes, and then we would inhale and come back to center. Take a little break just to make sure the spine is lined up properly. Move props over to the side if we needed to. And then we'd bring the knees in, take them over to the opposite side. Again, make any changes because we might have a different need for props on this side. Anchor the shoulders, turn the head in whatever direction is comfortable, and 5 more minutes here. And again, Inhaling the knees up, removing props, and working our way then into the next position, which in our case, for this little mini video, is going to be a little Shavasana. So for the Shavasana, again, if you're using this video as an actual class, I would invite you to come to a comfortable position, whether that's lying with a bolster under your knees, or whatever it might be, just settling into some kind of comfortable position, letting the shoulders relax down into the ground, letting the body, the whole body, become heavy. Let the floor support you completely. If it's comfortable, close the eyes. And once again, just start to come into the breath. Start to relax, feel that inhale and the exhale. You can even really take your focus right to your tip of your nostrils and feel that breath as it flows in and out, over and over. Relaxing all the muscles. Loosening the jaw. Letting the arms and legs be heavy. Letting the fingers and toes just relax. And again, if you're using this video as an actual class for yourself at home, I invite you to stay here as long as is comfortable in this Shavasana. And then when you're ready, just slowly start to become aware of the room around you. Begin to notice not only the floor beneath you, but the room around you. Maybe start to notice sounds or smells or the textures touching your skin. We'll start to add a little movement then as well, maybe wiggling fingers and toes. Let the head gently rock from side to side. Just relaxing, slowly coming back. Maybe stretching the arms overhead for a nice full body stretch. Any other movements that feel good, and then eventually you'll just work your way over onto one side of the body and slowly press yourself up when you're ready. And I hope you found this video helpful, teaching you a few yin poses that you can use either by themselves or collectively by, again, hitting the pause button for the 3 to 5 minutes and just enjoying the poses. But hopefully you find them useful in the theme for the month being nutrition, and thus a little bit the need to make sure that things are digesting properly. So hope you enjoy a beautiful March. Namaste.